Milostivi čovekoljubi Bog, i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods are high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems, giants walking, angels and demons fight, only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold, mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold, from valiant knights to buried treasure, this podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Yeah. Welcome to myth, mysteries and majesty. Exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep of the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Mysteries and majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold.
Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Infinity Castle, has surpassed $600 million in global box office revenue, with some reports indicating a figure of approximately $750 million or even higher, making it the highest grossing Japanese movie of all times. And for people who've been watching and following this anime from the beginning, I haven't. I just watched this last movie. This TV show has started back in 2019. Has drawn the millions, if not tens of millions of fans worldwide, and it's been a topic number one when it comes to movies, not just in Asia, not only in the States, but globally. So welcome to episode 182, when Shaun, my faithful friend, brother, and co-host, will help me dissect biblically, spiritually, religiously, intellectually, conceptually, and in every other way this anime that is it's like 2.5 hours long. So yeah, welcome to this latest episode. Shaun, when it comes to this movie, I know that both of us had to go and watch it for the sake of analyzing for tonight. What drew you the most about this movie? Once when you were done watching, because you're a father, would you recommend watching to your kids?
So what really drew me to the movie is, like, I grew up in the generation where we were getting kind of hand-me-down animes, like Dragon Ball Z, which was finished 30 years ago, so this is something that is pretty current, and it's almost like we're getting it right off the press, which is just awesome. And it's also interesting that we just did K-pop Demon Hunters last month, and that movie broke all Netflix records. And this movie is going to be set to break all kinds of records as well. And it's no coincidence that when Hollywood stops telling stories worth telling, that you're going to have these studios from the East that are still telling these stories that are worth telling. that they're going to get all of the traction and all of the revenue and all of the traffic from the West, because we are interested in that human story, and they know how to tell it. They come from a more traditional culture than we do. So yeah, I think that it's not only is it something that just attracted me, but it's attracting everybody. And I think that it's wonderful because it's showing that, you know, they can throw all of this woke stuff in our face. It doesn't matter. We're not taking it, right? Like the human condition is we can't take it. We have to tell the story that we've been given. Now, my thoughts on this were, first of all, I was like, what? I mean, I'm only getting a slice of a story. And so at first when I watched it, I was a little bit underwhelmed, not because of the production, not because of awesome fight scenes or the character development, but I felt like I was just thrown into a middle of a story that was already in progress, and there wasn't a fulfilling conclusion to the story. It was only after I went and did some research that I found out that this was the first of what may be 3 installments of the Infinity Castle arc. And so then I had, you know, to go and do some diving in and researching who these characters are and what are the relationships to one another. And that really just took me down a rabbit hole where I'm like, okay, I have to set time aside to watch the whole anime. Like, I have to do this because the story is so good and so compelling. So I think that's why we have to, as Christians, kind of get ahead of this thing where we can start dissecting it and pulling pieces apart so we can tell other Christians what to think about it, because it is a really good story and it is very compelling. And of course, you know, we love the Japanese style of storytelling, which is, like I said, it's more traditional, but it's also comes from a different culture. And so we have to be prepared to be able to kind of intercept the sensibilities of the young people that are going to be exposed to this and just maybe interpret some things for them in a more Christian context. That way they can get the most out of the movie without any detriment.
Yeah, as I was sharing with Shaun, I bought this shirt like a year ago without knowing anything about the animated movie, as people can see, because I thought it Demon Slayer. I'm like, man, that sounds like a cool Christian spiritual, you know, title or message or motif, without knowing much about the anime, especially now that there's a whole series that's been going on for years. So I bought this a year ago. I never wore it, and I was like, okay, tonight is the perfect timing when it comes to this episode. I want to say hi to Lisa and to Ember, our faithful friends and podcaster partners. Thank you so much. Hey, Ember, to you too. She's also saying hi to you, Shaun. Yeah, so when it comes to this episode, I mean the whole movie and the whole TV show, I think I should be getting some TV rights from Sony, because I already inspired Shaun towards the whole anime. That's 4 seasons. Many people will be watching now TV show because of this. So I think I deserve a share of this. Sony, if you're watching this episode, please send some donations. Okay, thank you. Yeah, basically when it comes to this material, I found it fascinating because it has so many characters. It has so many layers of story that this will be impossible to cover everything within hour and a half. But we'll try to do most important things, and we can always in the future do more sequels, especially when, like you said, because Infinity Castle is just part of the first part of the trilogy, we can always do something more in the future. So when it comes to the TV show Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, it came out in 2019, and then so far it lasted until 2024. We'll see if it will be extended, but from what I'm reading, basically the ending of the TV show will be these 3 movies, right? So it has 4 seasons, and Infinity Castle is the first film in a planned 3-part cinematic final for the global anime hit. Based on the manga by Koyoharu Gotoge, the film adapts the cinematic Infinity Castle arc, picking up where the Hashira training arc left off. After Muzan Kibutsuji, who is the main demon, we can basically call him Satan or the devil. After he launches a surprise attack, Tanjiro, who is one of the good guys, and the Demon Slayer corpse are pulled into the demon's stronghold. But even going back a little bit, just outside of this movie, when we would go to the whole TV show, the Demon Slayer follows Tanjiro Kamado, a kind-hearted boy whose family is slaughtered by a demon, leaving his sister Nezuko as the sole survivor, but transformed into a demon herself. To save his sister and avenge his family, Tanjiro joins the Demon Slayer Corps, a secret organization dedicated to fighting demons in Taisho-era Japan. He trains to master a technique called breathing style. And soon I want to ask you, what do you think about these breathing techniques? Because there are so many of them. I think there are about 9 of them in the TV show and in the movie. Battles demons using a special black sword and 6 Muzan Kibuzushi, the demon king responsible for the attack and transforming his sister. So basically, that's the plot when it comes not just to the movie, but the global overall TV show when it comes to this franchise. I know this doesn't do. It's not fair to summarize what people have been doing for several years into a few sentences, but I would just encourage, Shaun is about to watch the whole TV show. I would encourage people to start watching as well. Shaun, can we start by saying? There is a question that is a burning question for Christian parents. Let's start maybe with this one. For you as a Christian father, would you be allowing your children to watch this movie with or without you, but still, would you allow something like this to watch? Because this is coming from another culture that have inevitably different mythology, different gods, yet so many of the motifs in this whole franchise can be easily paralleled with the Bible and telling us, hey, this is actually a very good storytelling when it comes to fight between good and evil.
So, as a parent of children who are, 9, 10, so right around that age where they're kind of going to start hitting their preteen years, I would let them watch it with me. I would not let them watch it by themselves. Just because if you set your children in front of a TV, you are asking them to be indoctrinated. And so if you're not going to talk about the things that you watched, and then let them process that together as a group, then you're just turning them over to this other culture to let them be indoctrinated by it. And that's, to be fair, that's not what the producers of the show want. That's why they put the rating of it. I think the anime is rated like TVMA. Now, it's rated TVMA because it says that there's nudity in it, but from what I can tell, there's not. And I even went on Reddit and asked, why is it rated this? There is, I think it's in season 3, there is a scene where there is like a bath scene with one of the characters, and it doesn't show anything explicit. It's just that there is a woman who's in the bath. And I don't understand why that would get that rating, because I watching Inuyasha, and so that there were plenty of bath scenes because you had that lecherous monk who was running around, but I don't know why they gave it that rating, but I'm going to trust their discretion and say and reserve the right to fast forward through any scenes that I find problematic.
Yeah, thank you for that. Context when it comes to you as a Christian parent. Would you allow this or not to your kids? So basically, we're coming to the same conclusion that we did when we were analyzing K-pop Demon Hunters. So again, you can draw so many biblical parallels, but you as an adult should probably watch this. Your children should probably watch this with you. So while you're watching, you can pause, break it down to your kids while they're watching, give biblical parallels, and then continue watching so they can understand, like, hey, I don't have to be afraid of everything secular, quote unquote, but also I can learn from these things. What should I imitate or what should not imitate and stay away from? So that's a good point. I want to share a couple of articles for tonight before we start diving into something more serious. The first one, and I included those couple of links in the episode title. And again, the synopsis is that Tanjiro Kamado, who is a boy, he joined an organization dedicated to hunting down demons called the Demon Slayer Corps after his younger sister Nezuko was turned into a demon. While growing stronger and deepening his friendships and bonds with fellow Corps members, Tanjiro has battled many demons with his comrades, Zenitsu, Agatsuma, and Inosuke Hashira. Along the way, his journey has led him to fight along the Demon Slayer's Corps' highest-ranking swordsman, the Hashira. And soon I'll ask you the question about Hashira, Shaun. Including Flame Hashira Kyojuro Rangoku aboard the Mugen train, Sound Hashira Tengen Uzui within the entertainment district, as well as Mist Hashira Muichiro Tokito and Love Hashira Mitsuri Kanroji at the Swordsmith Village. Sony, you owe me so much money for this. Anyway, when it comes to this special elite group of fighters, and there are 9 of them, while I was reading and watching the movie, Shaun, I got this impression that Hashira, let's say the Demon Slayers are us, regular Christians, regular people in God's army. So, but I felt that Hashira, because they have these special breathing techniques and they can hurt demonic entities and principalities in a way that we can't, I saw them almost like as archangels. Would you share that understanding, or maybe your understanding would be different when it comes to the Hashira?
Yeah, the Hashira are essentially masters of their craft. So there can only be like one Hashira per domain and breathing technique, and they're kind of the masters who teach that down to their students. I don't know necessarily if I would say that it would be like the archangels, but maybe closer to like apostles. Like we are like Christians and they are like super Christians, not in the sense that they're any more saved than we are, but in the sense that they have greater authority. And so you see that the Hashira have a lot more skill and power. So I think maybe that's the way that I would say it. I think it's interesting in the I don't want to say that this is in the movie because I'm getting what's in the movie and what's not in the movie confused because I did so much research. But the Hashira are also called pillars. And I thought it was interesting that Hashira, when I first heard it, I thought that sounded like Ashera. And when you relate it to pillars, it's like Ashera pole. And, you know, these are near supernatural beings who have all of this power. And I was like, are they doing that on purpose? I don't know if they are. This may be something that's completely cultural and it just sounds the same. But it was something that I thought was interesting.
I'll be graceful and I'll say that's coincidental similarity. But also now when you're talking about the pillars, and I know I read that translation and the meaning as well. If they're the pillars, well, we're talking about the pillars of the church, and of course Jesus is the foundational stone. Well, then this would be in a way prophets and apostles. So I agree with you. But they're also almost like semi-divine beings because of the techniques they can do. Those regular, like demon slayers, they can do. So let's talk about those breathing techniques, because there are 9 of these super soldiers in this heavenly army, and each of them has different breathing technique. Have you thought about this breathing technique? If we can somehow parallel or compare this to the Bible, could this be maybe gifts of the Holy Spirit? Maybe like you're good in teaching, maybe I'm good in whatever, hospitality, maybe Amber, your mom are good in I don't know, kindness, love, and serving and whatnot. Have you thought about these breathing techniques, how they're unique and given individually to each of them in a separate way, that they're all one in a way, they're all like equally important, yet each of them is unique and different, just like God makes us unique and different with different callings, path, purpose that He put in our lives. Have you thought about this, maybe?
Yeah, like you said, kind of like the gifts of the Spirit. Like, I have an extraordinary gift of humility. I tend to be always the most humble. No, I'm just playing. But I think that you could look at it and say, there are similarities, but also the breathing techniques are just kind of like schools. And so we know that the Love Hashira started off as training under Rengoku to be a fire breather, or working in the breathing of fire. And then she ended up creating her own, which is the love domain, and she became the Love Hashira. So I don't necessarily think that it's like the gift of the Spirit, and that's just something that the Holy Spirit gives you, and this is like your power now. But it's more you can actually train in it. And I think that goes back to the philosophy and theology that the culture is based on is Japanese version of Buddhism, which is Buddhism combined with Hinduism, or not Hinduism, Shintoism, and a little bit of Christianity. And so you have those breathing techniques from the Buddhist monks, and they become like disciplines. And so kind of like in Naruto, where they have all of these super ninja powers that have been super exaggerated, for the purpose of entertainment. I think it's kind of the same thing with this.
Yeah, so I was thinking about breathing techniques as potential gifts, but also because all of them have this, it's the same gift but portrayed or displayed in each of these 9 individuals in a different way, and the more they practice it, they're better in that, just like with everything in life. So I was also thinking that couldn't this also be in a way our prayer? So like someone is praying longer, someone is praying shorter, someone is praying louder, someone is praying more quiet. Like me, I usually don't yell when I'm praying, even though I go to a Pentecostal church. I'm not one of those people that I'll be yelling at the devil. I'm not one of those. So like, well, maybe some people practice speaking in tongues. Let's say we all hypothetically speaking, let's say we all agree these are angelic and legitimate languages, gift of tongues. I'm saying hypothetically, let's say. So people have different prayerful lifestyle and prayerful language, and the way you would pray, Shaun, would be different than mine, would be different than your mom, would be different than Amber, would be different than PJ. I'm talking about all the people who are commenting in the live chat, so that I'm just mentioning them. So we will all have different we'll all have the relationship with the Father through in Jesus' name, through the Holy Spirit. But the way you would pray, the way I would pray, and these people in the chat, it's all different. And there's that beauty and diversity. So I was also thinking, like, these breathing techniques, they can be almost like prayer for language. Like we all have it, we all practice it. Someone more, some less. Some in a longer way, some in a shorter way. Someone maybe with a different dialect and accent, in a different breathing, quote unquote, technique. But we're all doing it because without it, it will be impossible to wield the weapons. And all of these super soldiers, right? The Hashira, they all have to practice this. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to defeat, because most of those monsters, regular demons, they're not that difficult to kill. If you're a Hashira, you're elite, good guy, warrior, fighting on the side of the light, quote unquote. But when it comes to those demonic princes, man, those are extremely difficult to kill, as we've seen in the Infinity Castle movie. So as we've seen also in the movie, and I don't want to reveal everything right now, certain individuals, from when it comes to Hashira, but also regular demon slayers, they were able to excel and expound on their breathing technique more than others, because they've been practicing, they've been having more faith, they've been more zealous, they've been in tune with that spiritual side, so that like it will be more efficacious when it comes to fighting against demons. So I'm like, man, this like just reminded me of just having a powerful prayerful life, and how that can be effective against the forces of darkness. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy. Is that the breathing techniques are like prayer disciplines. Like, for a Roman Catholic, they're going to have the prayer discipline of the Rosary, and so they're going to get really, really good at saying these prayers and having that discipline. An Orthodox will have their prayer rope. A Baptist, like me, extemporaneous prayers. Anglican is going to get really good at reading out of the Book of Common Prayer. Charismatics, like you, get really good at barking. Just playing. My bad. But we each have our own discipline, and we get better and better at it with the amount of time that we spend in prayer. But regardless, that is our weapon to fight the forces of darkness. So I think that's a really good analogy.
Hey, just a public announcement. I have never barked in the spirit. I have never twisted or rolled in the spirit. I never fell down in the spirit and did one of those things. So I hope the audience doesn't unsubscribe thinking I'm one of those loonies. I'm not, I promise. Amber has a question, and thankfully tonight each question is only $5. So Amber is lucky. She says, Shaun, what one thing concerns you the most about this film?
Yeah, the thing that actually concerns me the most is that people are going to look at the what's portrayed in the film, and they're going to try to say, okay, well, this is a one-to-one to our Christian ideas. So, Muzan is Satan. Well, it turns out that this is a guy who was biologically and chemically changed in order to save his life, and he became a demon. And the way that he spreads this curse of being a demon is through his blood, and so he gives his blood to people, and they become demonic. And so this is like what we see as demons are not the Christian equivalent of demon. This is like Oni meets vampire with a little bit of supernatural on top of it. These are basically monsters. They're not the Christian equivalent of demons. So they're the two different categories, even though we're using the same words. So if a Christian is watching this and is thinking, oh, well, that's what demons are like, or, oh, a really bad person can become a demon. Well, that's not how that works. And that's outside of our theology, but they're not trying to play within the bounds of our theology. This is their story that they're telling. We just have to interpret it properly.
Okay, thanks for that. Let me finish this article. As the Demon Slayer Corps members and Hashira engaged in a group strength training program, the Hashira training in preparation for the forthcoming battle against the demons, Muzan Kibuzuchi, again, this massive demon, call him the devil, Satan, whatever, he appears at the Ubuyashiki mansion with the head of the demon corpse in danger. Tanjiro and the Hashira rush to the headquarters, but are plunged into a deep descent to a mysterious space by the hands of Muzan Kibuzushi, so this main and demonic entity. The destination of where Tanjiro and Demon Slayer Corps have fallen is the demon stronghold, the Infinity Castle. And basically, that's the background that you don't see in the movie. This is all in the TV shows that Shaun and I did not watch. So this was the necessary context, because the movie basically starts at this section where we see. Well, I'm going to read this. Muzan is the top demon, the progenitor of all demons, and cannot be easily killed. He needs to be trapped in a place until sunlight shines upon him. So similar to a vampire. If he dies, all demons die. Another similarity to a vampire. So after trying to corner Muzan, Muzan threatens to kill all of the demon slayers before the sunrise. Then the floor opens, similarity to what we just read as the context that was given in the TV show, but not in the movie. So the floor opens and everyone falls down in this weird dimension or world filled with mazes where cubes moves around. If you guys watched that super mysterious sci-fi movie back in the 1997, The Cube, so it kind of reminds it can remind you of a world of cubes that are like just moving around, or something similar that we saw in Inception or even Doctor Strange, with all these buildings and mazes moving, opening, closing. So this is how this underworld where Muzan rules, he's trying to hide in Infinity Castle, and this is where the good guys fall into. And they're separated because they were so strong when they're united. They're very powerful, but now they're each separated. Sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes few people, just separated from the group. This world leads to the demon's stronghold, the Infinity Castle, and that's how the whole movie begins. Question for you, Shaun. Like I said, this world, like I said, reminds us of something that we saw in Inception, Doctor Strange, or the movie Cube. I don't know if you watched Cube back in 1997. But this is the underworld. This is, let's call it in a way, Hades. Let's call it Sheol. I don't know about Sheol, but probably Hades, the underworld where Satan and these small g gods are ruling, and where if you're thrown, like, woe to you if you cannot defend, because then you have to be begging for your life, just like the psalmist did. God, rescue me from the pit, because the waters are coming and drown me, speaking metaphorically. How do you envision this world, and how can we, if we can at all, parallel this to the Bible, especially with the Old Testament concept of the underworld and Hades?
Yeah. So for specifically in the Infinity Castle, I feel like this is less of an underworld in the sense of like a realm of the dead, and much more of an underworld as in like this is the demonic launch pad. This is like the place where the demons control. It's not hell, because we know that when the demons die, they actually go to hell. So this is like a place where they've created this little outcropping that is in a separate dimension from the living, that is a way for them to avoid going to the punishment that they deserve. And the only way to send them to that punishment is to kill them. And, you know, we do see a few of those scenes, or I think at least one of those scenes in the movie, where there is a demon who ends up kind of accepting his fate, and the background is overtaken by flames, because that's the imagery that he is going to hell. So yeah, I think that this kind of has to almost have its own separate category, where it's like the things that we think of with the underworld, as far as like that being a realm of darkness, yes. But the underworld is in like the place where the dead go? No, because it's not quite that. It's not quite hell, because this is where the demons are going to avoid hell. But this is the demonic stronghold from which they operate.
Yeah, another thing from the very beginning that, to me at least, was emotional and touching is that Master Kyojuro, who is one of the Hashira, he's the flame Hashira. He offered himself as a bait for Muzan, this the main demonic entity. But then he asks his closest disciple Gyomei not to tell other demon slayers about the plan. So basically, his idea from the very get-go was this was as the ultimate sacrifice. Now, we cannot say that everything is copy-pasted perfectly from Jesus's example, but this is type of a Christ sacrifice, and something that we see in the Bible, especially because it's so noble, and it's so in both instances, when it comes to Jesus and when it comes to Master Kyojuro, they don't think about themselves. They think about what is more important when it comes to benefiting others, when it comes to benefiting majority people. Will these demons and demonic chiefs and entities, will they become prevalent? Will they enslave people? Would families still be able to operate in a normal way? Will children be able to grow up unaffected or affected by these demonic forces? Will the world turn into something that we see in Upside Down theology that we did for the Stranger Things? Would the world turn into something that, from the spiritual demonic dimension, things and entities are passing on in our realm, in our world, and polluting and corrupting it spiritually? So that very introductory scene, even though it didn't work well, because as we saw the floor open and all the Hashira, they fell down in this kind of maze world, underworld, but still that very desire from Master Kyojuro before he died was like, okay, I want to be the bait. I wanted to be the bait for, let's say, the Satan. So you guys will be set free. You will survive. You will continue to live, and the legacy with our team, with our clan, with our purpose will still go on, and then you can pass it on the further generations. Like, hey, if Jesus would give life for the disciples and the others, then disciples can go and share the word and make the disciples out of themselves. So disciples will make disciples who continue to the disciples. So in that way, I see this similarity that is like so noble and beautiful, even though it sucks for the rest of the team, because of course, one of their big ones is dying as a sacrifice.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely possible to look at the sacrifice of Kyojuro and be like, yeah, that totally looks like Jesus. I thought when watching the movie that what happened was basically he came to offer up this sacrifice. Muzan came to take him out, and then like they went to raid the Infinity Castle. That was what I was thinking when I saw it. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Like they're going into the belly of the beast. Turns out that's not at all what happened. That they were showing up to kill Muzan, and that he's the one who opened up all these portals and basically drugged them into his own kingdom. And now they're fighting their way through it. I would say when you understand the backstory of what happened with Kyojuro, like he got to the point where he couldn't even see anymore. His disease progressed so badly that he was just completely bedridden. So like he was going to die anyway. And so he chose to like, hey, like this is what we're going to do. The thing where it separates him from Christ is that included in his death were the casualties of his wife and his children. They died as collateral. So it wasn't like, oh, you know, Muzan just came and got the best of him. No, they rigged the place with explosives and knew that they were all going to die. So if anything, it's less him that is the Christ-like sacrifice, because bro was dead anyway. Like his disease was progressing to the point that he was just going to die. But the sacrifice that his wife and his children willingly made so that they could end the evil on earth, that looks more Christ-like than what he did. I might receive hate for that, but the truth of the matter is, like, bro, you can't be a hero and literally kill your wife and kids at the same time. That's not how that works.
Okay, thanks. And what about something that I mentioned several minutes ago when it comes to Muzan, this demonic overlord? Because if he dies, all the demons automatically die because his essence won't be in them anymore. And another thing is that if he's caught outside on the open when the sun rises, he dies immediately. And I'm like, man, these are like two obvious parallels to the vampiric lore. Any comment on that?
Yeah, like I said before, they're less of what we think of as demons, like these spiritual, fallen, angelic beings, and they're more monsters, like a mixture between the Japanese oni, which is like an ogre-like entity that is kind of divine in a sense, and just depends on what side they're working for. There are heavenly oni and hellish oni, and a vampire. So it's like a mixture between those two with like Christian supernatural magic thrown in on the top, you know. So they operate kind of like the demonic in a sense. There are parts from what I've seen, not in the movie. There are parts of the way that they act that really do seem demonic. They can change form. They can move from one place to another. They can inhabit somebody. So in that sense, it's kind of like demonic. But as far as who they are, like as their creaturely self, they're just monsters.
Yeah, I agree. And soon, because the whole movie, 2.5 hours, is divided primarily in 3 big fights, and each fight has different breathing technique and style. It also puts each character back to their childhood and how certain demons actually became demons. And they're all kids. They're all humans who, at one point of their life, they made pact with the devil, so to speak, and they become demonized. So they became the opposite side of going through theosis, becoming divinized, being one with Jesus. They became one with the devil, one with Satan. And we'll talk about that. I just want to share something when it comes from another article. It says Muzan's soldiers are his upper ranks who battle the demon slayers in the ever-shifting structure of the castle in epic battles. Each battle is personal. The first is between Shinobu, a poison expert who takes on Doma, and that's what we're going to talk about within a minute. A demon with fan-wielding powers. As their face-off unfolds, it's revealed that Doma killed Shinobu's sister. I also gave the link to this article so people can see actually not just all the demon slayers names, but they can see their photos, how they look like, because when the movie starts, you'll see like 20 different characters. You won't know who is who. Like me and Shaun, we didn't know either. So, and you'll have a short bio under beneath each of these characters. So now we're going with Nezuko, and then like there are like 10 of them or so. So this will be very helpful when it comes to anyone who is starting to watch this for the first time, and you don't start to go and watch first the 4 seasons of the TV show, but you immediately jump like Shaun and I did immediately to this movie Infinity Castle. In that regard, this article will be very beneficial because it will give you short bio and photo of each of the main characters. But that being said, let's go to the first battle. So in the first battle, we see Doma. He's one of the upper rank demons. He has two sharp fangs and he feeds off the flesh of people he kills. He says that when he kills people, their suffering and fear stops. So he believes he's doing a good thing. He has a twisted mind. And in a way, he reminds me a little bit of Joker in Batman movies. Doma, this demon, says that since everyone's afraid of death, he helps them by consuming them so they get to live within him for all eternity. I'll stop here because there's much more about this demonic entity. And this is more like a demonic prince. This is not your regular demon like you read in a Bible, a demon that will possess people. This is a demonic principality. So I'll stop here. Shaun, how did you understand this? Like, hey, you people are afraid of dying, but I can live eternally. And if I consume you, and we'll soon see throughout the movie, you can see him actually eating. It's disgusting. It's horrible. He's eating the human victims, and by absorbing them into himself, he thinks, well, now they can live through me in all eternity. So here I saw the perversion of what Jesus offers to us is eternal life, and how we live through him forever and ever, because he's Alpha and Omega, and if he doesn't die, we can't die either. So this is the opposite way, trying to do something like godlike, having a godlike ability, and offering their victims, not their disciples, to live through the demonic entity, but they're not spiritually joined. He literally has to eat and devour his victims. Any comment on that?
Yeah, so that's just the world system, right? I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, well, this is obviously like a Japanese like internal critique of communism, and I'm not getting political. That's just like the background, But it really fits all worldly systems. The idea of you can live forever if you let me devour you. Like you can only live forever in me. And so there is no worth. I will make you happy. I'm going to use this soft speech and flowery language in order to entice you. But the only hope that you have of continuing past this is if you're useful to me. And that's the whole world system. I mean, we create statues and sculptures of people who were beneficial to the world system. But, we build churches for the people who were not. They were part of the body of Christ, not necessarily beneficial to the world system.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. So going back to Doma, one of the demonic princes, so again, he believes that he helps his victims, the people he's devouring, to transit their souls to paradise. And that's actually the word that is being used in the movie. Once upon a time, Doma was just a child, and his parents thought that he was so special because of his unusual looks. So they assumed that he can hear the voices of God. One translation says God, one says gods. Doma considered them, all these people around him, to be hopelessly naive simpletons because he always pitied them, and he saw himself as someone special, even when he was a child. They were the founders of the eternal paradise fate. Followers of this cult would come, bow, and pray to the child. So when he was still a child and becoming more and more famous, his followers, these zealous religious people, would form this cult called Eternal Paradise Fate, and they will come before Doma as a child, and they would ask him, they would bow down before him and ask him to be led to the paradise. Well, he was bored and sometimes even touched by their tears and thought to himself that paradise doesn't even exist. And you can see throughout that whole backstory of his childhood how he found all their tears like either boring or like, oh yeah, I'm touched by their suffering. But he was like, why do you even want to be rescued? Why are you even hopeful? Because there is no paradise, there is no salvation, there is no heaven. Since he was a kid, he was so cynical, and he would, in this arrogant way, feel pitiful for people, because he was like, I want something different, like what you believe actually doesn't exist. There is no help for you. there's no salvation. There's no one coming to rescue. It almost reminds me of that novel Waiting for Godot. Some translators say Godot, which will be basically speaking about God. So people are always it's a short novel. People will be waiting for God, even though the novel doesn't say specifically God, but you can tell they're waiting for God for salvation, and he's not coming. And of course, it's written by an author who wasn't a Christian. So in this same concept, I mean, in the same parallel through the movie, we see that Doma, even when he was younger, he was skeptical. He didn't have faith. He didn't have not just faith in God. He didn't have faith that people have bigger purpose. That there's some meaning to your life. He was like, "You're all simpletons," and this is how he literally called them. So again, he was bored by even them coming to him. Moreover, to Doma, God or gods, again, depends on the translation, does not even exist. So he did try helping them, but this was all within the scope of him growing up and seeing the world so much as like this is meaningless. And in a way, I didn't even think about this. In a way, this reminds me almost of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. Like there's no purpose of life. Any thoughts on that before we dive into the fight?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He really viewed things through this lens of nihilism, and so it makes sense that he would want to become a demon because otherwise, well, I'm gonna die just like everybody else. And so he was offered to become a demon, and of course he took that because why wouldn't he? In his view, there's all you do is rot after death, and he says as much in the movie that all there is for you is death and rot. It's interesting because I don't know if it shows us in the movie, but another reason that he just had so little faith in people is because his father was using the cult that was being erected around this boy as an opportunity to sleep with young women, and his mother found out what was going on and murdered his father in front of him. And so he's like, oh, well, people are just dumb and they kill each other over stupid stuff. So yeah, he did not grow up with good examples or really any respect for humans at all, which is why he eats them.
And what's funny, this is another example of if we will compare, like you said, not literal biblical demons, but someone who is a monster. I think devouring flesh of people would be another characteristic of this vampire lore. So there's more of vampirism throughout the movie without them even being shown up. But what's interesting is that if you look closely, all the vampires they have front sharp teeth. So again, there's this vampiric lore, even though it's not obvious at the very beginning. You just have to listen, to observe, to take some notes, at least mentally, when it comes to the whole worldview and the concept of what is the movie about. So all these demonic entities, they're more like vampiric monsters, right? With special abilities. So why I'm showing Shinobu? Well, because the first fight out of 3 in this movie are between Shinobu, this lady, and Doma, this first upper rank demon. Despite the odds and her multiple wounds, Shinobu manages to strike Doma by giving him a mortal wound, and hopefully she can avenge her sister. But Doma heals himself. One of the main characteristics for the all 3 upper demons throughout the whole movie is that they can heal almost instantly. It's like so frustrating for the good guys because sometimes they give their maximum and they're like, oh, I can take a break for 5-10 seconds because demons heal almost completely. And it's like, well, I hit them with my most powerful blow and still nothing. Like there's not much left I can do. So there's this also frustration, like what can you do against Satan or demonic principalities when you feel like you're giving your maximum? It can be very frustrating if you're dealing with that, or maybe it can be a sin, like you're wrestling with sin and you come to God, you're forgiven, and you feel like you're falling over and over again, and you're like feeling useless, or like, well, what's the point? I'm gonna fall into the same sin, if not tomorrow, then the day after that. So there's this frustration of giving your best and finding it's not enough. And I think if we would turn to the scripture, especially the New Covenant, we see that in that context and in those moments, the only solution will be turning to God for extra grace. And this is why the Bible is encouraging us to come boldly to the throne of grace, because when you come to the throne of grace, you will not be condemned for your failures and shortcomings. Because guess what? Even before you were born and created, God knew every sin you would commit, and He never was like shaking His head or trying to like just get rid of you or say, "Hey, don't come to me, you're a failure." Which we will see that some of the reasons that these three upper demons became demons in the first place is because they felt rejected or hurt. They had some sort of trauma and pain, and because they didn't heal, they become demonized. So again, we see Shinobu fighting with Doma, and despite her best and most powerful blows, Doma can just heal so fast. He says that even when hope is gone, humans always fight to the bitter end, and he finds that as something so vain, futile, and he's like laughing. He's like, "Oh, you people almost forgetting that once he was a human being too." So instead of being he's in a way commending them, but he's like saying this from the perspective of arrogance, like, yeah, you're trying hard, I can applaud you for that, but there's nothing you can do to harm me, to hurt me. And then he says, "Oh, humans are so foolish, but that makes them so beautiful." And throughout his whole conversation with Shinobu, there's this, like I said, very Joker type of laughter and conversation, which is basically making fun of human nature and desire to even fight, even when everything may seem hopeless. So then he finally defeats Shinobu, and you can see this very sad scene when he's actually absorbing her whole body. She's disappearing right here somewhere between his throat and his chest. So that was fight number one. Any additional comment on how we can see Domu, especially his Joker kind of like type of personality, where he would look people from above and everything would be a joke to him?
Well, not really on that, but I do want to comment on something that you did say. And I kind of want to compare Doma and Shinobu, because Shinobu had her whole life taken away from her. Her and her sister decided to get into demon slaying. This demon killed her sister. This demon had fatally wounded her, and she still didn't give up, right? This is somebody who's like, the world is not fair, but that doesn't give me justification for being a terrible person, right? Or a coward. But if you look at the demons, and all of them have a really sad backstory, right? And today, in this world, we think, oh, well, like, they have an excuse because the world was terrible, and it just makes sense that that's the way that they would act. And it's almost like a polemic against our modern sensibilities. The world is never going to be perfect, and it's never going to be convenient. Virtue will never be convenient, right? And so even though it would make sense for somebody to choose the easier path, the low path, we're commanded and called to choose the high path, which is difficult. So when the world isn't perfect, you have to be. And somewhere along the line, we lost that. And now we start, well, this guy did this because this is how he grew up, and oh, he didn't have a chance. The world's never going to be perfect. Like, everybody has problems. The idea that you can just get away with it because you had a bad upbringing, that's stupid.
Okay, let's switch to fight number two. So after Doma devours Shinobu, which is the girl that we see on that shared screen, we are turning to another high rank demon that is called Kaigaku. And Kaigaku, just like Doma, was once a human being who also devours humans. But not only that, he and Zenitsu, and soon I'll show who Zenitsu is, were adoptive brothers, and this is actually a very sad story. So Kaigaku, who was a boy, was an adoptive brother to Zenitsu. They were growing up together and training together. Kaigaku doesn't show any sadness that their former master, who adopted them and trained them, Jigoro, killed himself when he heard that Kaigaku turned himself into a demon. Kaigaku is angry and jealous that Jigoro wasn't a sole successor, but a co-successor with a clumsy boy Zenitsu, even though Kaigaku was a senior. So we see from the very beginning almost like this, it's almost like this Cain and Abel story, Shaun. Like there's this jealousy, like, oh, but in this context, Kaigaku was upset as a kid because he was senior and he was a better trainee and better devotee and better fighter than Zenitsu, who was a junior. He was a younger boy, and he was like thinking to himself, well, my adoptive father, he will put me to rule over everything. He'll put me to inherit this clan, this dojo, right? That's the word they're using for these training rooms and the whole facility. But no, actually, he would be named by their adoptive father to be equal co-successors. So from the very get-go, Kaigaku, even though he was better and older, he was like, why would I be training with this? And we see his younger brother, Zenitsu, he was so clumsy, he would make mistakes, and Kaigaku would, over time, grew so cold and bitter towards him. He was like, is it possible that I'm equal to this boy? That's basically what comes to his heart. And I can understand it to a point, because you can be doing anything in your life. Let's say you're trying to excel at your job, and if your boss doesn't recognize that, he will put you equal to someone who is late, who is not being very productive. Maybe they don't take 30 minutes break, but they take 15 minutes break. So they're always trying to cut edges, and you're like always trying to be perfectionist. So I understand where you feel you're not being treated fair. But here, he's not just jealous, he's angry at his younger brother, whom he doesn't find to be equal to him at all. Moreover, that's not all. Kaigaku, as a boy, before he became demon, he was always unhappy, dissatisfied. He never smiled. He was joyless. This is especially depicted as he was growing up and going through the training process. He chose a separate path than Zenitsu, because Kaigaku became a demon by receiving a blood from a master demon's servant, and received limitless power for feeding his humanity. Back then, he was told that he mustn't spill a drop, and that reminded me of the Eucharist. But before we switch to Eucharist, any further parallel between Kaigaku and Zenitsu with Cain and Abel?
Yeah, with Kaigaku, his whole problem was pride. He wasn't willing to humble himself, and he reminds me, not that the story is the same, but the brother of the prodigal son, right? Who was like, well, look, I've done all this stuff, and why are you giving him stuff? Like, he already took his stuff. That's my stuff. Well, you're giving him my stuff. But that's the kind of attitude that he has. Like, I should inherit everything. The truth of the matter was, he couldn't master the first form. That was that was where he failed. There was a reason that he was co-successor. It wasn't because Chiguro just wanted to like put them both together. There was neither one of them were able to master all the forms, and so there was a reason that they were supposed to be together. But he had this prideful arrogance. He wasn't humble enough to just receive whatever came to him, and that avarice ended up culminating in him becoming a demon.
I wanted to show to everyone Zenitsu. So he turned out in a very powerful warrior, but when he was younger, he was very clumsy. He couldn't even walk straight. He was falling down. So he was making his older adoptive brother very upset with him. So again, there's this logic like, hey, I don't want to inherit or share anything with this clumsy person. But this clumsy person, and praise God, we see this in our lifestyles. I mean, I mean, not just even through us. Look at Paul. Paul was in his life, in his past life before coming to Christ. His life wouldn't count much to the apostles. Remember when he became a believer and follower of Christ, the other disciples were like, "Ooh," like they were like skeptical. Is it possible that someone like him can turn to actually be a positive person of good influence? So imagine Zenitsu with that so-called bad reputation, if we can even say that, who was clumsy, not good enough in training. There was no bright future for him becoming a master demon slayer, and now he managed to become that. He managed to go through all the obstacles and become a new person. Let's call it reborn, quote unquote. So there's this new person that is now fighting on the other side. I mean, a new Zenitsu is now fighting on the other side his brother, his adoptive brother, who turned to the dark side, so to speak, and received demonic blood and became a demon himself. And he became a demon through this process where he was literally given monster demonic blood, which he had to drink. And he was told before that process even started, make sure that not even one blood is spilled. And that reminded me when I was watching years ago on a YouTube video. It was either Oriental Eastern Orthodox Church or a regular Eastern Orthodox Church where, man, they're so careful with the way they would take communion, Eucharist. They were like, if by any accident, if there's a drop of wine falling down on the floor in the church, they'll bend down and clean it immediately, because they have so much. It's not idolatry. It's not idolatry at all. It's so much reverence and respect for, because you believe you're taking Jesus himself into you, and this represents Jesus, and you don't want a drop of Jesus's blood, even though it's not literally blood, to be just wasted on the floor. It's so holy. So I respect that reverence for God. And this is not even a topic of if is the real presence there in the Eucharist or not. That's not even the topic. The topic is that this is another Christian topic theme twisted upside down, not to make the movie bad, but to show us how demons can use something that God can give as a good thing. Hey, eat of me, drink of me, so you'll have eternal life. And here's a demon coming. Hey, here's the blood of the demon master, of our boss. If you take it, if you take this blood, you'll become demon yourself. So for me, this is a perverted version of the Eucharist.
Yeah, it's like feed on me and you'll become like me. And that's both in Christian in our understanding of the Eucharist, that by eating and drinking in faith we become sanctified, and with Muzan it's eat and drink like me and you'll become like me, and it is, you drink his blood, but also he eats people. And so what you have to do once you drink his blood is eat people. So it is eat like me, it's that whole part of it. So yes, it's very Eucharistic. And I think they did that on purpose, because it's, that it's so striking when you see, because that's the first thing I thought of when he's holding, his hands cupped and he's got the blood in his hands, and then he drinks the blood, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Eucharistic right there.
Yeah, when it comes to the very fight that Zenitsu has with his former brother, now turned demon, Zenitsu fights him and causes him a severe wound. But Kaigaku shows that his thunder breathing technique is more advanced, because he can practice up to the sixth level or form, versus Zenitsu's just first level or form. So Zenitsu is giving his best, but Kaigaku has trained and became a better warrior throughout time. So Zenitsu understands this, and he cannot fight back. And Kaigaku gloats that he's better than all of them, all the fighters. So not just Zenitsu, but all of these human fighters. And as he's falling and should be dying, Zenitsu's memories go back to the childhood and training, and this gives him somehow power to perform thunder breathing 7th form. So he can practice something called the God of Fire Thunder ability. And even though he's beheaded now because Zenitsu practiced this new ability that is of the seventh form. So even though demon is beheaded, Kaigaku continues to be still jealous and angry that Zenitsu himself invented this godlike form, this new skill that their former master couldn't teach them, because guess what? Back then, that seventh form didn't exist. There was the biggest breathing technique of this special ability, of this thunder breathing technique, was 6th level. So when he was gloating and thinking, oh, I'm gonna defeat my human brother Zenitsu finds his inspiration and power, but going back in the past and getting up all that, if I can use the word, such as love, such as kind memory, such as something that will propel him and give him, in a way, adrenaline, but adrenaline that will be more, spiritual level than something psychological or physical. So he's getting this power that he doesn't even know where it's getting. He just thinks of the past, and now he can perform 7th level that no one else in the history of this breathing technique would perform, because it didn't even exist. So he invents this, even though he was just a clumsy boy. So he manages to behead this demon, his former brother, and as he's beheaded, his head is falling down in Hades. This head is still being jealous and angry at his brother, thinking like, was he even able to come up with this 7th level technique? Because if I wouldn't come up with that, and I trained my whole life, and these demons, they're old. They're not just all 5, 10, 20 years. Some of them are centuries old. She was like, who is then this, my clumsy former brother, to come up with such a solution? And again, even to his dying, annihilating moment, this demon doesn't have any positive thoughts, doesn't have any remorse or regrets or like desire for reconciliation. It's like, this person defeated me. It's like, to the last breath, he can't comprehend that a human being, especially a human who was so clumsy and imperfect, managed to defeat him. And I think that speaks volumes, because I think that without Jesus, this is how the devil, the Satan himself, can see us. But if we draw in our spirit power from the Holy Spirit, from God himself, we can come up with so-called unexpected technique and fight back Satan and defeat him, but only if we draw our power and sources from God.
So it's interesting, because there is kind of a gospel message in here, because you have Zenitsu, who's being overpowered, and yet then he has the 7th form. He's able to move so quickly that Kagaku can't even see it. He's beheaded before he knows what happened, or what happened to him. So it's like the one who accuses him of being weak and fearful and soft is beheaded. So he no longer has a voice to speak. Zenitsu went from being this fearful, anxious little boy, to being the only one to kill an upper level demon by himself, which is like, that's crazy. And then when he's falling and he perceives his adopted mother over the river, his adopted father then looks to him and says, "You're my pride and joy." So it's like there's this moment where not only is the accuser thrown down, but also the father says to you that you are my pride and joy. That it's this beautiful message of what I could only think is like, dude, this is like a gospel message.
Yeah, and also remind me of the way some of us grew up. If you never heard something like that from your parents, that they will tell you, "I'm proud of you," or "See, there's so much potential in you," or "You can be this and that," or "Wow, God can do so many things through you when you grow up." If that seed is not planted in you, man, that part gets very emotional, because like, oh wow, finally I can hear those words. Someone is happy with my progress. Someone is proud of me. And I'm not saying to say this, to give false compliments or to over compliment our children to the point they become spoiled and arrogant. That's not the point. That I'm not going there. You should discipline your child, and you should encourage them. You should have balance. So if you're a person like that, I didn't hear so many of those things either when I was growing up. And when you hear something like that, if you just close your eyes and imagine, could it be that maybe God can say something like this to me? I don't know if he can be ever proud of me, because I see myself in many ways as a failure. yet he's not giving up on me. But could it be that he can be somehow maybe not proud of me, but pleased with me? Wow, like there's nothing greater in life than Heavenly Father, the creator and maker of everything, being happy and glad with me, with you, with all of us watching now. For me, that's like that's that's the biggest compliment you can get in your life. That's the biggest ambition you can have and you should have in your life. So it's like that was very emotional part of the movie as well. And now we're switching to the third, and this was the longest fight, and that's why I have the most notes I took from the movie when it comes to this third fight. Akaza is another upper rank demon who was also a child. He pities their former master, Kyojuro, that he wanted to stay human. He admits he can't stand the weaklings. Tanjiro, the guy from the he's put here as the first demon slayer in this article. Tanjiro fights Akaza, or Akaza. He uses the fire wheel and fake rainbow skills and cuts through his head. But the demon heals, and he heals instantly. Now Gyu, or Gyu-san, which was translated as Mr. Gyu, so whichever version I use, it's the same Gyu or Gyu-san, comes to join Tanjiro to fight Akaza. So now there are two fighting this demon. So he fights him, and that fight doesn't last for too long. So Tanjiro comes back to find him and tells him that it's not against the nature to care for the weak. On the contrary, it's a noble thing. So not just through fight, but Tanjiro is trying to talk with Akaza, who is feeling bad for these weaklings, for us humans. But Tanjiro comes and not just fights with him. He also says, well, it's not against the nature to care for us as weaklings. It's a noble thing for care to care for someone who is, so let's say, underneath you. They're weaker, they're sickly, or maybe they're young, they're just a baby, an infant. It's not a way of you're more supreme than them. Just because you're more powerful or bigger or in a more financial better position than them, it will be a noble thing to care about someone who is beneath you, so to speak. But Akaza, he resists this emotional conversation, and he fights even more and even more fiercely. Akaza's neck is cut, but it heals fast, and he grabs Tanjiro's sword with his bare hands, and Tanjiro is powerless. Gyu gets back in the fight, but Akaza predicts each of his moves because Akaza is a very powerful demon. Now Tanjiro is able to enter this transparent world where time almost freezes, and he's able to dodge and attack. This spiritual invisible realm helps him to drastically improve his battle skills and moves. He was able to see his opponent's internal organs through his body as if he had an X-ray vision. In this other world or spiritual world, Tanjiro manages to tame his hatred, his anger, or even a will to fight. So Akaza's spiritual radar suddenly cannot detect Tanjiro anymore, even though Tanjiro is sneaking up behind Akaza. Akaza realizes that Tanjiro saw or was Akaza realizes that Tanjiro was present behind his back, and he's thinking like, well, how are you able to pass my spiritual realm? And suddenly there's a light bulb, so to speak, above his head. He's like, oh, you're in this realm of the highest, and that's quote unquote. That's literally what Demon says, Akaza. Oh, you're in the presence of this realm of the highest, which is a spiritual realm. And Akaza has been seeking for this spiritual realm for his whole life, but he was never able to find. But when Tanjiro humbled himself, he was able to enter this spiritual realm, calm himself, and get access to another spiritual ability that made him invisible to his demonic opponent. Any comment on that before I continue talking more about the fight?
Yeah, and I mean, just notice that the killing instinct or the hatred that Akaza was able to predict because of his ability, that would have never been able to beat him. But what he used that was able to beat him was he did what his father taught him, right? And so I think, the application for that as Christians is we need to do what our father taught us, right? What Jesus taught us to do. And that is, you know, we don't have to come at the spiritual warfare with all this anger and hate and shout at demons or any of that stuff. We humble ourselves and we get busy doing the things that God taught us to do, and that will overcome the spiritual battle.
Indeed. So going back to the fight again, Akaza is shocked that such a human being could enter this spiritual realm, and let's call that this spiritual realm would be a divine realm where only a few, especially elected ones, can enter. And Akaza is like, man, look at my position and my ranking, and I was never able to find this realm. And you, just in the middle of the fight, you were able to somehow find this spiritual realm and gain a new skill that you can sneak up behind me and hurt me. And he's like, shocked how that even happened. So now Tanjiro, the guy that we can see in the background, he manages to behead Akaza, but Akaza's body is still fighting him. So we see this scene that is actually funny. Akaza is beheaded, but his body can still resist them and fight them. Tanjiro, even though Tanjiro beheaded him, and Akaza's his body is fighting them, he's trying slowly to regrow his head, and you can see this through the movie how parts of his neck are starting to grow all the way up to his head. Gyu, another fighter, is coming back to fight because occasionally he gets thrown out of fight, so he awakes and he's coming back and cuts him. But even without his head, Akaza continues immediately healing, which is very frustrating for both of the good guys who are trying to annihilate the demon. Gyu's inner voice speaks to him that we don't fight the way samurai do. We don't carry weapons, though we carry our convictions like swords in our hearts. And I'll read this again because I found this very interesting. We don't fight the same way samurai do. We don't carry weapons, though we carry our convictions like swords in our hearts. So they fight with their bare hands, with their fists. Akaza is obsessed with becoming stronger, and he keeps repeating those same words. And now another emotional aspect comes because Akaza's memories go back to his childhood when he was a perpetual thief, and his dad hanged himself because of that shame and because of his own sickness. So Akaza, who was then called Hakuji, became angry, aggressive, beating up others because of the pain he was carrying as a boy. The reason Akaza, or Hakuji, was stealing was to afford for his dad's medicine. His family was poor and malnourished. Akaza would have done everything for his father. After being accepted by a martial arts master, Akaza used to live in his master's house and take care of his ill daughter, even told her that they can see fireworks the following year, despite she not having faith that she'll survive for that time being. So Akaza wondered, how come innocent people suffer? So there's a lot of spiritual messages in Akaza's life as a child. Later on, as his master's daughter got well and a few years have passed, his master asked Akaza if he would like to take over his dojo, which is a room or a hall in which judo and other martial arts are practiced. Moreover, his daughter started liking Akaza. So Akaza, this is beautiful and emotional. Akaza was shocked that he, as a former criminal with so many, because back then they will give you, I remember through the movie, they will give you tattoos as a sign that you're an offender, a criminal. So the more tattoos you have, you're found to be not welcome in the society. That it will be almost impossible for you to find a wife and a good job because you've been marked forever. You can't remove tattoos. So he was shocked, and he even said this, that I, someone with my criminal background, I can be loved. He felt so unworthy that someone like this innocent girl, because he took care of her and she fell in love with him, he felt so unworthy that he can be married to a wonderful woman such as her. This is when Akaza promised again to be stronger so he could protect her. But someone poisoned Akaza's master and his future wife. So Akaza kept asking why. It was like, question asked almost to God, even though God was not present, at least in the movie. So he was just like talking to himself, like, why are these things happening? Why is everyone getting killed or injured? Everyone who I care about in my life. So he always had these philosophical questions and he never got an answer. So because of that pain and suffering, he became more and more bitter and aggressive. So then he went to the nearby clan, because that's what he understood, that the nearby clan was responsible for killing his future bride and her dad, who was his new master. And he killed all of them, 67 people, because of his anger. Not only killing them, he shattered their skulls and crushed their organs, all barehanded. Most had limbs missing. So this is when he became demonized, when he was turning into a monster. Then suddenly a demon is approaching Akaza, and he's offering a plan. He says, "Listen, I'm planning to create 12 powerful demons through the blood." And again, this is the same principle we saw with the previous demonic principality. So this is why Akaza cannot stand humans' weakness. He doesn't want to remember his past life and people around him suffering. In the meantime, Akaza's head is almost fully redrawn. I would like to stop just here for a moment and ask you, oh my gosh, there's so much to speak here psychologically and theologically. Shaun, this is a prime example. If we don't bring our sufferings, our pain, our unresolved issues, our the things we're wrestling with, theodicy, problem of evil and suffering, any sin, any philosophical or theological issues, questions, and even crime before God, if we don't bring them before God, if we keep them in ourselves and so-called, well, let's use metaphorical language, something in us explodes and changes to the way where we are growing cold and we die, but not in a way die to ourselves to serve God. We basically die and become cold-blooded monsters. This is what happened to him. How important it is to bring our pain and suffering to God so that we wouldn't turn into a so-called monster.
Yeah, that's vital. We have to have a place that we take our pain. We have to have a place where we take our sin and all of the burdens that we're carrying. Otherwise, they'll crush us. And the only thing left of us, once we're crushed, once that the light in us dies away, the only thing that's left is the villain. And that's what Akaza, that's what he portrays, is he had this goodness inside of him, and he was willing to do anything for his father. And so he would not have to continue stealing. His father sacrificed his life, took his own life, because he said, that's the reason that my son is a criminal. It's because he has to steal to get medicine for me. So he took his own life. It wasn't because he was ashamed of his son. He was ashamed of himself, because my son is out here stealing. That crushed him. Then he goes and he finally finds this life, and he begins to hope again. And he finds all of the happiness he was ever looking for in life. And then while he was away honoring his father's grave, they poisoned the well, and his new adopted stepdad and his wife are killed. He comes home. That little piece of light that he had, that he was cultivating and trying to be that person that he never thought he could be, that was shattered. What's left? And it's even when Kokushibo comes and offers him this, the blood, he doesn't resist, and yet he also doesn't like grab onto it. He's like, do whatever you want. Life doesn't have any purpose. There's no meaning to it. And so this is a defeated man who doesn't even want to live anymore. Well, why would he? His whole life that he's known is pain. So if you don't have any place to take that and unburden yourself, that's what you will become. Because I've said this before, the inward facing life, the life that you live to yourself, for self gratification, is not worth living. It's not worth the pain. If you had to sit there and think about the only thing that you were thinking about is how to pleasure and gratify your own flesh, you'll quickly find that it's not worth it. That it is much more pleasurable. It makes much more sense. It's much more efficient to just end your life. It's not worth the pain. But a life lived unto others, now you have a purpose. Now there's a reason for the pain, right? So you need to find a way to unburden yourself from all of this and live a life that's outward facing, that's for other people, because then that gives you a reason not to quit and not to give up. Because that inward facing life, it's not worth it.
Yeah, we'll be done probably within 10 minutes or so, maybe even less. But I just want to say, I still have a little bit more when it comes to this fight. And from all these three upper level demons, Akaza's ending could actually be the most positive one and the most happiest one, compared to the previous two demons. So Tanjiro, the guy in the background, he regains his consciousness and hits Akaza with his bare hands, which reminds him of his dead master and how he killed tons of people with his bare hands. Before annihilating him and Gyu, Akaza realizes that it is he himself who he hates, and he starts beating up himself, hurting himself, hoping to die and go to hell. Akaza sees his father, who shows up as a ghost, as a spirit before him, and then he sees in the same figure his previous master, who could have been his father-in-law. And his father and his master or father-in-law, they're both whole and healed now, because he sees them as happy, healed spirits that live in a special spiritual realm. So Akaza, the demon, beheaded demon, whose head is slowly regrowing, he starts crying, telling him that he failed him. He tells both his father and tells his, a former almost father-in-law that he failed them. But this spirit that resembles both of these father figures tell Akaza that even though heaven may not accept him, their hearts are always with him. And just as Akaza is trying to die and go peacefully, the demon master now shows up. And look how this is, I believe, how Satan plays mind games with all of us. So Akaza is trying to be noble, even though he's demonized, but he's trying to go peacefully, not hurt people anymore. He's trying to find peace and go back to the spiritual realm, wherever that is. But now the demon master shows up, grabs Akaza's head, and he reminds Akaza that he's sought to be stronger than anyone. And now he's doing this. So he's like almost telling him, like, well, the same way your father is proud of you and happy, I'm unhappy because you're breaking the word, and like you're now becoming the weakling. And you're against weaklings. Like, who the heck are you trying to play with? He also sees the spirit of his never meant to be bride. So Akaza is seeing his never meant to be bride, who tells him that he has done more than enough and that she and her dad are okay now. And these come as healing words to his spirits. So Akaza now starts to weep even more and tells her that he's sorry for being unable to protect them. She and her dad, his master, welcome him back home in the spiritual realm. Now Akaza's body can finally disintegrate and stop healing, and he disappears. Now, the only thing here that I maybe didn't like is like, okay, I don't know so much Japanese lore and their mythology, but if we're reading here that if heaven does not accept Akaza, and if he didn't go to hell, and they don't believe in purgatory because this is not Catholicism, this is another mythology, then where did Akaza's spirit go? Because he's told to be reunited with his, bride and with her dad. So how do you imagine this spiritual world? Because for me, I was trying to reconcile this with the Bible and I couldn't. But maybe your imagination and understanding is deeper than mine.
Yeah. So there was another demon that was like a child when they became a demon, and ended up getting. So once they were killed, they kind of reverted back to childhood. This wasn't in the movie, but this is in the whole show canon. And he's confronted by the parents, and says basically like, I can't be with you, right? You guys are in heaven, and I've done terrible things. I'm going to hell. And they said, well, that's fine. We'll go to hell with you. And so like there's this in the Japanese lore, hell is not like an eternal place of torment. It's a place of purification. And so like the idea is that after a certain amount of time, you'll get out and be reincarnated. And so it's not like an eternal thing. Whereas in Christian idea, like it's one or the other, and the door's locked. Like there's no, you can't just decide you didn't like the buffet over here, so you're going to go to that room. That's not how that works. And so this is another place where it's like, I would like to be able to sit in the room with the children who are watching this and say, hey, this is their understanding. It's not ours. We have the Bible, and the Bible speaks to us about what is the true state of people after they die. And you have heaven and hell, and there's really no in between. Now, we don't put people in heaven or hell, right? God's mercy is sufficient, and anyone who is repentant, we hold out hope for them, right? So we're not putting people in hell, but you don't just get to go from hell to heaven, right? So that's what I'd like to clarify for the young kids watching it.
Yeah, and I have to admit that the emotional appealing, the emotional, almost romanticized version of the end of the movie, of like, hey, maybe heaven will not accept you, at least not for now. But guess what? You don't have to go to hell either. You can come with us. I know it sounds like a happy ending, like there's hope for this tortured soul. And it makes you like, even as a Christian, let's be honest, it makes you want you to believe that this place is real, because you want the best for Akaza, because he was a human who became demonized, and now he's trying to redeem himself and to die as a human being with his soul not being demonic soul but human soul again. So he's trying, even though he's dying, he's like, I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to be happy, and I just want to give up on this torture. I just want to give up on this burden that is like putting me down. I just want to be joined to my never meant to be bride and his father in this separated spiritual heavenly realm. So it's like, even as a Christian, you want to believe this exists. You want to believe there is hope for people who repent, because he's repenting by the end. He didn't pronounce it and say it verbally as we see examples in the Bible. But I just want to say, like, I wouldn't judge or condemn people who are like, yeah, I wish this is true. I wish him all the best, because I'm trying to speak as if this is true. Like, if this is really happening, you want to show extra grace and mercy. Like, God, like, I truly hope a person like this, even in their dying moments, or if they're passing away and somehow before they face judgment in that afterlife moment, there's actually not a moment that, according to different theological understandings, some believe in soul sleep. I used to believe that, not anymore. Based on some research and a couple of guests I had on the channel. So if the afterlife is active, could people actually repent and be transferred to paradise? Probably not. But if there's still some hope, you want, especially if someone died from your family or friends or cousins and you care about them, you want that to be true. So when I was looking at this, I'm like, I don't think this is biblical. I don't see it to be biblical, but there's part of me that desires this to be true for people, even in past their death. If they're conscious, if they can say to God, I'm sorry, forgive me, that there can be extra grace, extra hope for them. I'm not saying this is biblical, but I'm saying there's part of me, part of us, they want this to be true, because we care. We want happy endings, especially for people who care to repent. So it's like there's this inner struggle, at least in me, like, I can't quote a particular biblical verse, but I want this to be true for people like Akaza, people in our reality who, like, I did so many bad things, I died, and in the moment I died, maybe I had revelation or something that I didn't have before, and I'm truly sorry. Not sorry because I don't want to burn. I'm truly sorry because I should have used my life for better. I should help people. I should be on the side of light and good. So it's like there's question, in you. And I'm not even going to the side of Catholicism and living in purgatory, being cleansed and saved. Even Orthodoxy, at least some part of Orthodoxy and some priests and some scholars, they're like, well, we're leaving this issue of salvation, what happens after that, to God. Most of them don't believe, or many of them wouldn't believe that there's a chance for you to be saved after that. But there's some Orthodox scholars and priests who do believe, like, it's up to God. It's not completely impossible. And for me, I'm like, I want this with everything in me. I want this to be true for people who honestly desire to be saved, honestly desire, and honestly touch in their hearts, like, I truly am sorry, not because of hell, but I truly desire to be good and to serve God and to love people.
So, as a Christian, just if I can have like a pastoral moment here, I think that anyone who is capable of having that change of heart, we should never undersell God's mercy in those moments, those precious moments between the time that someone stops breathing and the time that there's clinical death. And who knows how long God can stretch those moments. There was one pastor who said, other than Judas, and that's tenuous, we can't say for certain that there's anyone in hell. We don't have biblical grounds to say that there's anyone in hell, right? So, although I'm not going to preach that because I want people to be convicted, my hope is that God's mercy is so abundant that when I get to heaven, I'm going to say, man, I didn't think you'd be here. Like, I mean, I knew I didn't deserve to be here, but bro, you like, and so I think that anyone who has that ability to at least reflect on their life, I think that that person will have those mercies given to them. Now, there are people who are so hard-hearted that they will reject God no matter what. And I think that maybe that's the kind of people that hell is reserved for. But I don't doubt God's ability to sit there in those moments between, your final breath and clinical death. And like I said, God can stretch those moments. We might end up having like, a Christmas Carol moment where you've got to go through and see all of these visions of your life and put it in a different perspective than what you're used to. Like, hey, guess what, buddy? You're not the victim in this. Like, you brought a lot of this on yourself. And maybe there is this offer to repent, but prior to it being like locked in stone where you're at. And so I think as Christians, we can say God's mercy is super abundant. Now, for the culture and the theology where this movie comes from, I have a problem with what happened with Akaza, because Buddhism has justice. If you did something, you have to pay the penalty for it. Now, with them, they would say, well, it's more merciful because you don't spend eternity in hell. It's just a really, really long time. Okay, but then it's like there's always this. There's no forgiveness. You have to pay what you owe. You have to pay your debt. In Christianity, the kind of outrageous claim of Christianity is that even a terrible, terrible person, if they reflect on their life and they're like, man, I really messed up, you can bring that to the throne and you can have all of that wiped away. So I think, maybe not the way that it showed in the movie. Could it happen? A person isn't like obviously going to become a demon and then choose to like, hey, we're going to get to heaven. But like up to that point, I think a person could truly reflect on what they've done and be like, man, that's messed up. I shouldn't have done that. There's nobody who's too far gone that God won't save them if they take the first step to come to him.
Yeah, and that's true. But I was also thinking even more, stretching that, which is hypothetical. Like, even if someone would pass away, would there be any chance in the afterlife? And I would say possibly not. But I'm just still holding, even if it's 1%, potentially to be true for. I don't know. I'm not even trying to have theological, biblical, discussions on the afterlife. I'm just saying that I'm I'm just trying to be hopeful for people who, even if they're conscious in the afterlife, if it's not too late to be saved. And I'm not here even going to the the rich man and Lazarus, and if that was too late for rich man and concluded and generalized to say, well, then if it was late for the rich man, then it's late for everyone else. I'm just saying that watching this movie made me think of, how beautiful that will be, even if afterlife, if God will offer extra chance to people who don't want to be demonized, who would say, God, I wasted my life, I realize that you're the way, the truth, and life. You can do anything you want with my life and with myself, but if you want to accept me, here I am bowing down before you, and God to save them. I think that will be uh I mean, that will be truly the good news. Not the good news, but the bestest amazing news ever. As we're coming to the end of the movie, now we see that Doma, who is the only one left from these three upper demons, he's facing a new character, and that's the girl that we can see in the background, Kanao. She's facing him, and this is where the movie ends. And also, no one can find Muzan in this Infinity Castle, and no wonder, because there'll be two more movies coming after this one. So probably in the third movie, they'll have to all join forces, or however of these good guys are left, Hashiras left to fight and kill Muzan. But basically, that's the end of our topic for tonight. Wow, we actually went for 1 hour and 40 minutes. I thought we would be 1 hour and 10, 15 minutes, so we'll be done. But we enjoyed so much assessing all these fights and characters and their past and hurt, and the way someone can be healed, but also demonized, and the danger of that. So I want to just thank everyone for being with us, for kind comments, for being involved in this chat. Thank you, Amber, for $5. I didn't get any super chat easily in 5-6 months, I think so. So wow, thank you so much for that. And I also want to give you, Shaun, any time. Oh yeah, I want to remind the audience that this Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time, I will be having an interesting episode that doesn't have any outline or special program. I will be interviewing a woman who believes that she saw a werewolf or a dog mask. So you can think about that whatever you want to think. But I already had 1 or 2 people like that on the podcast. Now I had one person who believed that he saw a dog man, and another person who, if you remember, Shaun, when I asked you and PJ to come and pray with this older man who was having interview from his car because his house was full and he needed silence, but throughout his whole life he faced so many demonic attacks. So 2 of those interviews were probably the weirdest and most fringest on the channel. When I say weirdest, I don't mean in any offensive way. I'm just saying the most supernatural interviews I ever had in these 2.5 years. So this woman will be probably number 3 when it comes to the most bizarre, in a positive way, interviews I'll be having. So this is coming this Sunday, 7 p.m. And because of the nature of her job, her face will be hidden, probably even her proper full name. But that's because she asked me for that, and who am I to reject what my guests are asking me? That being said, Shaun, any pastoral final thoughts when it comes to this movie, especially paralleled with the Bible, if we have any comforting news for the audience who are still not serving God?
Yeah, I mean, watch the movie. I would recommend to watch the anime. That's what I'm going to do. But understand that the good news that we have is far beyond anything that is you're going to find in movies like this. Like, there's aspects and hints of the hope that we have, but in all actuality, we don't have to worry about having to fight the forces of darkness in order to achieve some salvation. Our salvation is given to us as a free gift, and from that we go and do battle with the forces of darkness through prayer, and through helping, serving, attending church. These kinds of actions that maybe seem mundane, they're not. It's all spiritual warfare. But in doing these things, we're helping to save others and pull them out of spiritual darkness. So in reality, if you wanted to be part of the group of the demon slayers, you need to join the church, because that's what we do. We do it all day, every day. So praise God.
Last thing, I didn't plan this, but I also want to encourage you to be one of those demon slayers when it comes to the spiritual aspect. And this is not me being controversial, and this is not me being judgmental. But please, when I say be a demon slayer in the spiritual biblical sense, I'm not talking about these guys here. That's up to you who you follow. I'm just saying Shaun and I, and maybe one more guest, will have a detailed analysis on these guys and what they're teaching. And it won't be personal attacks on them. I believe all of them are people of God, serving God, loving God, but sometimes with questionable theology. So be a demon slayer in a biblical sense, not necessarily how they are portraying spiritual warfare to look like. So there's nothing personal. May God bless these men and women of God, but I'm not saying be a demon slayer like them and like their theology. Uh, Again, I'm not trying to be divisive or controversial, but I just want to say that our theology sometimes, even amongst the brothers, can differ, and that's okay because we can all have these in-house debates and discussions. But also theology matters. Not that we're better than them, not that I'm better than any of these individuals. I don't even know a lot of them. I know maybe a few that I watch here and there. I believe they're all godly people, saved, but also sometimes our personal eisegesis, not exegesis of the Bible, mixed with personal experiences, it can be a hindrance to our spiritual growth and growing in sound theology before God. So just be on guard. That's my point. And again, I'll see you this Sunday evening with a new guest. God bless.